Hi guys, this is Dalmia, recording a quick audio for YouTube just for entertainment and fun. No financial advice, nothing of that sorts. Just making a quick video on the latest issue of the Economist magazine. As you guys know that I'm very fascinated by the cover of the Economist magazine. I've covered some of my earlier videos on the 1988 Economist magazine, which spoke about the change in the monetary system. Today I'm going to cover a bit about the Economist magazine, which is the latest issue, just came out 2 days ago. I've got a copy in my hand and I think it's very interesting. Today is the December 4th and 2018, and I'll try to cover this magazine and what it says and means. So the cover of Economist of the annual edition 2019, it says the world in 2019, and in my view this cover is one of the most creative work by the Economist. It's full of symbolism, it's full of science. It is trying to tell us what we can expect in 2019 just by looking at the cover and analyzing it. The magazine also has honored and is a tribute to the works of Leonardo Da Vinci 500 years on. As we all know that Leonardo Da Vinci was one of the most talented individuals ever to have lived. He had interest including in invention, painting, sculpture, architecture, science, mathematics, music, engineering, I mean history, writing, I mean the list goes on. He was one of the greatest men, most talented human beings to be alive, and it's my honor to pay respects to him via this video. And some of his famous works, as you guys know, is The Renaissance Man, Mona Lisa, The Last Supper. He made some drawings about the aerospace, etc. He was way beyond his time, and I think this magazine cover pays a big tribute to him. Moving on to the magazine cover, I think it says a lot about what we can expect in the coming year and has a lot of symbols, etc. in it. So let's start with the main focus of the magazine, which is The Renaissance Man, one of the famous works of Leonardo Da Vinci. And the Renaissance man, which is also known as the philosophy of change, is a symbol of change, you know. And this picture, this work of Da Vinci gets the maximum space or coverage area on the cover. And I think by this itself, the big message of the cover is that we can expect massive changes coming up in 2019, the way we live our lives. You know, so this first message is that Renaissance Man getting so much space on the cover of the magazine is telling us that expect a big change, because that's the symbol of the Renaissance Man, the philosophy of change. So let me move to the different aspects of the cover of the magazine. So the first one is obviously the Renaissance Man. Okay, if we focus on his chest, the words "Me Too" is imprinted there. As we all know that the Me Too movement got a lot of media attention, and local and internationally, and it was a movement against sexual harassment, sexual assault, and sometime in October the hashtag Me Too movement got a lot of attention on social media. Everybody was talking about it. The noise has lowered down over the past few weeks, but the mention of the Me Too movement in the magazine of the world in 2019 might be suggesting that it may re-emerge in the coming year in some form or the other. We'll have to wait and watch. I'll make this video quick because there's a lot to cover, so I'll speak a bit fast. Moving on to the focus on the face of the Renaissance Man, he's wearing something which is like glasses, you know. So for me it looks like a virtual glass. We all are aware of the Google Glass, which came into existence in 2016, but it failed. But now again in 2019, it's possible that there might be re-emergence and acceptance of virtual glasses. There might be companies like Apple or Samsung which might come up with better glasses, more usable, and which might become a part of our lives in the coming year. Moving on to the next symbol, which is the left hand of the Renaissance Man. The left hand is carrying a mobile phone with a QR code, you know. So this phone looks like an Apple phone, which has a QR code in it. So for me, that symbolizes the cashless society. The cashless society basically describes the economic state whereby financial transactions are not conducted with money in the form of physical banknotes or coins, but rather by a transfer or digital format. So we all are aware that we move from cash-based society. Slowly we are moving away from it. We use our credit cards. Now we have started using things like PayPal and Paytm to transfer money, and I think this will take a much larger form in the coming year. I think that is a message with the symbol of a QR code in his left hand through payphones. With the same concept, I'd like to stick to the symbol which is there above his head. You see a bird carrying a little bag. So I researched about this bird, and in the end I found that it was a symbol of a stork. And if you go to Google and if you just type in stork, you'll get the word stork carries baby. So there's a myth that when young kids ask their parents that where do babies come from, the most common answer you get is, oh, the stork, the bird carries them. So what does this symbolize? So this basically, if you look at the picture, the stork, the bird, is carrying a bag which looks like a money bag with a barcode in it. So for me, this excites me a bit because I'm positive on the cryptocurrency space, and I feel that this finally might be the birth of the Bitcoin, or in other words, the acceptance and the delivery of the Bitcoin in the legal framework and the mainstream acceptance of it. So I seem to be excited about this concept, this message. The bird is obviously in the center of the magazine, so this could be the center concept of the coming year, where cryptocurrencies get accepted as a form of payments or currencies or a technology which is legal and more mainstream. We know that NASDAQ and NYSE is planning to list it in January. We also know that companies like banks like Goldman Sachs are starting custodian services. So this gets me excited that the stock carrying the baby could actually be Bitcoin or some cryptocurrencies acceptance to the mainstream world. Moving on, I'll move to the lower left hand of the Renaissance man. Now, as we can see that the lower hand is carrying a weighing scale. So we are aware that the weighing scale basically is depicting the justice system, or something to do with the change in laws. In USA, we are seeing right now that the constitution of the Supreme Court got a lot of media with Kavanaugh, and there was a lot of media trying to stop it, and President Trump really supported him, and finally the constitution of the Supreme Court has a lot more conservative judges. And this weighing scale could also be depicting that the legal system, the justice system of America or the world might be taking a lot of traction in the coming years. Like the constitution changes or the Supreme Court changes. I mean, I'll take you to a video which was between Senator Graham and Justice Kavanaugh before his appointment, where he asked him a basic question about whether the importance of military law and criminal law system. So if you see this, maybe there are some changes in the justice system coming up, I don't know, but this for me seems to be a message or a sign for that.
You could hold one of our own as an enemy combatant if they were engaged in terrorist activities in Afghanistan. Are you familiar with that case?
Yeah, Hamdi.
Okay. So the bottom line is, I want every American citizen to know you have constitutional rights, but you do not have a constitutional right to collaborate with the enemy. There's a body of law well developed long before 9/11 that understood the difference between basic criminal law and the law of armed conflict. Do you understand those differences?
I do understand that there are different bodies of law, of course, Senator.
Moving on to the right hand of the Renaissance man, we see him carrying cannabis. Now this is very interesting that he's carrying cannabis, and at the same time there's a lot of traction in the laws and reform for the acceptance of cannabis. There are referendums and on legalizing cannabis, which is in the offing. And there are a lot of groups and NGOs and different groups of people who are trying to give a yes campaign with a respectable face to cannabis to be accepted for medical use and by mainstream media. So him carrying cannabis could also be suggesting that in the coming years, cannabis could be something that everybody will be talking about. Sorry, I'm speaking a bit fast because there's lots to cover. Moving on to his right forearm, he's got a tattoo out there, which is in the shape of a DNA. So this DNA tattoo could also be linked to the designing of babies, like we are talking about designer babies and gene-edited babies. And recently there was a report by a Chinese researcher who has claimed to edited the genes of his babies. You know, he's getting a lot of slack for it in the media, but nevertheless, there are talks about editing the genes and the DNA of babies to avoid certain kind of diseases or stuff in the future. So this could be interesting, that the tattoo of a DNA on his body. This could also mean that some kind of chips, because tattoo is a symbol which is being chipped in the forearm. So in Sweden, for example, there's a lot of testing that's going on the technological advancement, and thousands of people have inserted microchips in their hands. So these chips basically have great technological advantages. For example, identity, for security, you can have cash in that, you can have social media profiles in that, so contact details, medical details, etc. So as we speak, in Sweden this testing is going on, where everyone can just put a chip in the body, and which will get rid of all the passports and identity issues and cash issues, etc. So moving on, let's move to below the picture below the Renaissance man's hand. We see a weird animal. I mean, I was trying to find this picture, like what it is. Look like a dinosaur, but after a lot of search, I found that this animal that we see is armadillo. Now armadillo also has a symbol to it. So if you see, basically what this animal is a symbol of, it is a symbol of protection and boundaries. So basically the armadillo's physical and spiritual boundaries are a symbol of this animal, and what this physical bodily composition is basically reminding us to protect ourselves. So why is this animal here? So if you look at the picture in more detail, you'll see this armadillo, which again is a symbol of protection and boundaries, and he is surrounded by boundaries. So what it is telling us that most of the governments, which obviously we see, whether in France, in Spain, all the governments are talking about immigration and migrants coming in, refugees coming in. That's becoming a major theme of this year. Even President Trump is talking about nationalism and protectionism rather than globalism. Even Brexit was an example of that, which is about protectionism and nationalism rather than globalism. And this armadillo basically is a symbol of protecting our own boundaries, you know. And next to that, and there are a lot of migrant issues which are going on right now in Spain, in Mexico, in France, which might be growing up in the coming years, and this symbol is to protect ourselves. Opposite that, we see a picture of Mona Lisa, but the face does not belong to Mona Lisa, and the words are saying Angelina and Mona. So this is again a tribute to one of the finest works of Leonardo Da Vinci, of Mona Lisa. We are aware that Angelina Jolie is one of the Goodwill UN advisors and ambassadors to the UN, and who is fighting against the global refugee crisis. So you can see that there is a communication between UN and the armadillo, and to find some kind of consensus going forward, which is globalism versus protectionism could be one of the themes going forward. Moving on, let me move up a bit to the magazine, where there's a picture of Mahatma Gandhi. And staying with the theme of refugees and violence, we have a picture of Mahatma Gandhi. This year, 2019, will be celebrating 150 years from Mahatma Gandhi's birth. We all know that Mahatma Gandhi was a symbol of non-violence, and this picture of Mahatma Gandhi here is a message to the people and the world to adapt to his spiritual message of non-violence against the violence that might be coming up. So this is a message for all the people in the world for spiritual and physical non-violence going forward. Moving on, staying with the India theme, we see an elephant on the left hand side of the magazine. You see this is an Indian elephant, and with the tusk, which is basically moving upwards like a stock market symbol, basically saying that the economy of India looks good and will move upwards. It also has a cloth on the back of the magazine which has a symbol of the lotus. Most of you might not know this, but lotus is a symbol of our ruling party, Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP. It also might be saying that in 2019 is the upcoming elections for the new government or the same government, in which the symbol of lotus being there on the elephant might be pointing out that maybe BJP comes back as a ruling party in India in the upcoming elections in 2019. However, it interests me that the lotus is only half, so it's not a full lotus. So my conspiracy mind tells me that is it possible that the BJP returns with a coalition government? We'll have to wait and see. Moving on, let me move to the right hand side of the elephant, which is a bulldog. He's wearing a Britain vest. When we see the magazine backwards, it says Britain beyond Brexit. It's basically telling us that what will happen to Britain post the Brexit, both economically and politically. There might be some chaos or a lot of action out there. We'll have to wait and watch, but it's telling us to expect a lot of action in UK. Moving sideways, we see a panda. Now the panda looks angry. We all know that the panda symbolizes China. We know that China at present, President Xi is very upset about the recent trade war issues going on with USA and President Trump. Moreover, I understand there are a lot of internal issues also, both economically and politically, with the debt issues and other political issues which might play out in the coming year. It's also interesting to see that the panda is placed on the top of the globe. This also might signify its power in the coming year, where it might become a very powerful nation. We know that yuan is becoming powerful. It has just launched petro yuan in 2019. Petro yuan, which basically would say that if you buy oil with yuan, it will be backed by gold. So it might be signifying some kind of power in the coming years. Next to that, we have Putin, which basically, and the words are saying Putin's pipelines. And we know that there are a lot of conversations about Putin's pipelines, which are from Iran to Russia. There are a lot of gas and oil pipelines between Iran to Russia. There are some issues going on between Ukraine and Russia because of these pipelines. There are also some pipelines spoken about from Saudi Arabia to Egypt and Israel, which will be helping Russia. And this all links, according to me, to the petro yuan again, which links to China, and that's why the words Putin's pipelines is set between the panda, which is China, and Putin, which might have a lot of significance. We also have Putin and the panda, China, looking towards or facing towards Trump. There's a conflict going on between both Trump as well as China and Russia. They seem to be on the same side, so we can expect some conflicts to go ahead, whether it's trade wars or other kind of conflicts. We'll have to wait and watch, but it seems to be interesting that they both are facing towards Trump, and all three of them don't seem to be happy. And also the words Putin's pipelines links me to the petro yuan, which will be a very hot topic in the coming year. Below that we see the Four Horsemen, which is a biblical term. Actually, it has biblical significance. If you just type in the Four Horsemen on Google, you will see it takes you to the New Testament of the Bible, which basically is symbolizing some kind of war, good versus evil, the change. We know that in Syria there's a Middle East war going on. There's also a war in South China Sea. A lot of conflicts happening there, which is now being participated by different countries, including Russia, China, France, Germany. They all are in conversations, and this topic is getting heated up. So I think in 2019 we might see a lot of heat. This Four Horsemen might be suggesting some kind of a war between the major countries of the world. Let's see. I hope not, but let's see. Moving to the right again, a face of Pinocchio, a face of Pinocchio, where basically we're hearing a lot. This is a man, a normal man, could be a newsreader according to me, and Trump's words, fake news comes to my mind, with the nose growing, showing that the normal mainstream media is now recognizing that it's fake news, and that's why it's a symbol of lies being caught. Moving ahead is there's a face with some algorithms in it, and the words facial recognition. Very interesting that China is already in process of installing 400 million cameras all over China for face recognition. 400 million cameras, I mean, this is more than the US population. And it's also talking about the credit scoring system based on social behavior, which will be impacting the lives of 1.3 billion people in China. So this could be a topic of conversation in the coming year. The facial recognition, cameras everywhere, concept of privacy forgotten. I think there's a lot of things which will be coming up. Moving on, we go to a drawing again of Leonardo Da Vinci. On top, basically looks like a airspace shuttle. There's an arrow towards the moon. It could be indicating that some kind of NASA project to go back to the moon, drawing the lunar, because it's a crescent moon. It's depicting the lunar eclipse. So suggesting some kind of project of NASA traveling back to the moon to verify something or of some significance. It could be relating to some project, but nevertheless the crescent moon was very interesting. It's on top of the magazine, so I spent some time on it, and it might have some symbol, and this is my favorite part, because the crescent shape is a symbol to represent the lunar phase, and it's a symbol of a moon, but it also symbolizes silver. The crescent moon symbolizes silver. You guys know that I'm very bullish on both gold and silver as precious metals because of petro yuan and what's happening in the silver market. And the crescent moon symbolizing silver being at the top of it, I think the silver prices will go up again. This is just my theory, and I think there's a lot to watch out for 2019. It's going to be a very interesting year. I think it's very fascinating what this magazine has done in one small space. So many ideas, so many symbols. I hope that you like this video. Please comment on it, give me your views on it. If y'all have some ideas of some symbolism, y'all can correct me where I'm wrong. I'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe to my channel. Please give me your likes, and thank you very much once again. I hope you like the video, and let's hope that 2019 is a great year for all of us. We are expecting a lot of changes, but I hope all for the good. Wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and a lot of health. Thank you very much. Bye for now.